The Surangama Sutra, Volume 4, 30. Purna, falseness is the same way. How can it exist? You only need not follow discriminations about the three kinds of continuity of the world, beings and karmic retributions. Then the madness, like Yajnadatta's, will cease by itself. Once it ceases, Bodhi appears. The supreme, pure, bright mind originally pervades the Dharma realm. It is not something obtained from anyone else. Why then toil at cultivation, making yourself bone-tired, trying to gain certification? Consider a person who has a wish-fulfilling pearl sewn into his clothing, but does not know it. Poverty-stricken and ragged, he roams around begging for food and always on the move. Although he is indeed destitute, the pearl is never lost. Then, from among the great assembly, Ananda bowed at the Buddha's feet, stood up and said to the Buddha, Bhagavan has just explained about the karma of killing, stealing, and lust. When the three conditions are cut off, the three causes do not arise. Then the madness, like Yajnadatta's, will cease by itself, and once it ceases, Bodhi appears. It is not something obtained from anyone else. Those clearly are causes and conditions. Why then does the Tathagata abruptly reject causes and conditions? My enlightenments have come about through causes and conditions. Bhagavan, that is not only true of those of us who are young in years, or who are hearers still in the process of learning. Mahama, Udgayayana, Shariputra, and Subhuti, and others who followed the elder Brahmins, became enlightened and obtained no outflows upon hearing the Buddha expound upon causes and conditions. Now you say that Bodhi does not come from causes and conditions. That would make the spontaneity that Maskari, Goshaliputra, and others advocated in Rajgriha the primary meaning. I only hope that the greatly kind one will dispel my confusion. The Buddha said to Ananda, Let us take the case of Yajnadatta in the city. If the causes and conditions of his madness cease, the nature that is not mad will spontaneously come forth. The entire principle of spontaneity and causes and conditions is nothing more than that. Ananda, Yajnadatta's head was naturally there. It was a natural part of him. There was never a time when it was not. Why then did he suddenly fear that he had no head and start running about madly? If he naturally had a head and went mad due to causes and conditions, would it not be just as natural for him to lose his head due to causes and conditions? Basically, his head was never lost. The madness and fear arose from falseness. There was never any change that took place. Why then belabor the point about causes and conditions? Had the madness been his natural state, the madness and fear would be fundamental. Had the madness not been his natural state, and his head in fact not lost, why did he run about in a state of madness? If you realize that you have a head, and recognize the madness of your pursuit, then both spontaneity and causes and conditions become idle theories. That is why I say that once the three conditions cease to be, the body-heart appears. The arising of the body-heart and the ending of the mind subject to arising and ceasing itself imply arising and ceasing. The ending of both arising and ceasing is the effortless way. If there is spontaneity, then clearly the thought of spontaneity must arise, and the mind subject to arising and ceasing end. But that is still a case of arising and ceasing. To call the lack of arising and ceasing spontaneity would be like saying that a combination of mundane phenomena that form a single substance are mixed and united in nature, and that everything not mixed and united is spontaneous in nature. Spontaneity is not natural, and mixing and uniting lack unifying qualities. Spontaneity and unity alike must be abandoned, and both their abandonment and their existence cease to be. Achieving that would be no idle theory. Bodhi and Nirvana are still so far away that you must undoubtedly pass through eons of bitterness and diligence before you cultivate them and are certified. You can memorize the 12 divisions of the sutras spoken by the Buddhas of the 10 directions and their pure, wonderful principles, as many as the sands of the Ganges River, but that only aids your idle theorizing. Although you can discuss causes and conditions and spontaneity and understand them perfectly clearly, and people refer to you as the one foremost in learning, still the eons upon eons you have spent saturating yourself with learning did not help you avoid the trouble with Matangi's daughter. Why did you have to wait for me to use the holy mantra of the Buddha's crown to put out the fire of lust in Matangi's daughter's heart, causing her to attain the position of an anagamin and join a vigorous group in my Dharma assembly, drying up the river of emotional love in her and setting you free? Therefore, Ananda, your ability to intellectually master the Tathagata's wonderful secret teaching for eons upon eons is not as good as a single day of non-outflow cultivation that is intent upon quitting the two worldly sufferings of love and hate. In Matangi's daughter, a former prostitute, emotional love and desire were dispelled by the holy power of the mantra. Now her Dharma name is Bhikshuni nature. She and Rahula's mother, Yashodhara, both became aware of their past causes and knew that for several eons they had endured the suffering of greed and emotional love. Due to their single-mindedness, they became permeated with the cultivation of non-outflow goodness. They were both freed from their bonds and received predictions. Why then do you cheat yourself and still remain caught up in looking and listening? When Ananda and the Great Assembly heard the Buddha's instruction, their doubts and delusions were dispelled. Their minds awakened to the ultimate reality. They experienced both physical and mental light ease and unprecedented attainments. Once again, Ananda wept, bowed at the Buddha's feet, knelt, placed his palms together, and said to the Buddha, "The unsurpassed, great, compassionate, pure, and precious King has instructed me well, so that by means of these various causes and conditions, expedients and encouragements, all of us who were immersed in the sea of suffering have escaped it." Bhagavan, having heard that explanation of Dharma, I know that the treasury of the Tathagata, the wonderful, enlightened, bright mind, pervades the 10 directions and contains the lands of Tathagatas throughout the 10 directions, all the pure and elegantly adorned kshetras of wonderful enlightened kings. The Tathagata also admonished that erudition is of no merit and is not as good as cultivation. The Bhagavan then sympathized with the hearers and those enlightened to conditions in the assembly, all those who were not yet at ease with the body heart. His sympathy also extended to helping beings in the future Dharma-ending age, after the Buddha's entry into tranquility, to arouse the body heart. He revealed the wonderful path of cultivation of the unsurpassed vehicle. He proclaimed to Ananda and to the Great Assembly, "You have decisively aroused the body heart, and so you should not grow weary when it comes to the wonderful samadhi of the Buddhas, the Tathagatas. You must first understand 2 absolutes regarding initial resolve for enlightenment. What are the 2 absolutes regarding initial resolve for enlightenment?